Hi, John. It's been 5 days since you replied to my video on gun control, and I didn't even make a comment acknowledging it because I thought I was going to sit down and reply to your reply immediately. And of course, I didn't. I have a new addiction, which I'm going to vlog about in the future, but I've literally lost a couple of days this week to my new addiction. I hope that'll be the main digression for this video. Reason I'm replying with a video instead of just making a comment is you're right. I didn't directly respond to your video. I wanted to make a point that it seems really important to me, and it's kind of a side point to what you were making. And my point in a nutshell is that I don't want to talk about gun control policy, because gun control policy itself has become an object of profitable conflict, like the Heisman Trophy or the Super Bowl ring. You know, sometimes the gun control advocates will be winning, sometimes the gun rights advocates will be winning. Neither side will ever be satisfied. They'll continue to fight, and people will make money off it. And I don't have the kind of personality that gives a shit about those kind of conflicts. And I sort of thought that you were talking about gun control in your original video, in the sense that I thought that what you were saying was we need a gun control policy that allows the law-abiding citizen to have a gun, to be there to stop a Cho or a Columbine massacre. We need the armed citizens, and we need a policy that that allows that. Well, okay, but let me respond to you about what the other possible interpretation of what you were saying, which is just that someone needs to do something, someone needs to meet deadly force with deadly force, and men are, by nature, what am I trying to say? That men need this power, and men should be brave, and men should be strong, and men should take the responsibility. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I don't have a moral or philosophical objection to shooting a guy who is shooting other people or shooting at me. I mean, I'm not any kind of a pacifist. And if I had a gun and the ability to use it, neither of which I have, and I saw a guy pull out a gun and start shooting, I would shoot to kill. We're completely in agreement on that. But what comes around in my mind always is the difference between how we feel and what reality is like. You said of Cho, I wrote it down, somebody needed to accommodate him, meaning he had come there to die, and he was going to kill himself. He couldn't have been dissuaded. He wanted someone to try and kill him. Same with the samurai sword guy you mentioned. Yeah, I agree. If there was any rational calculation in his attempt to get someone else to kill him, I think in the end he killed himself. I may be wrong. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to Cho. I know that Klebold and Harris killed themselves. The SWAT team didn't do it. But if he was there to get someone else to kill him, it was the police. If he was being rational at all about it, there's a term that I've heard people use, suicide by policeman, because obviously he didn't expect just anybody to have the gun. And that's sort of what I want to talk about. I don't know if you own guns yourself. And I also don't exactly know the gun laws at this point because my life has had almost nothing to do with guns. But I'm fairly sure that if you're a upstanding citizen here in California and you are really relentless about it and have nothing in your background to be used against you, you could probably get a concealed weapon permit if you really cared to. There's always somebody who will accommodate you, and even if you didn't get a permit, you could probably, if you really cared to, carry a concealed weapon at all times on your person, and go through your life that way. You could do that now. Government be damned, you could do that now. How many mass shootings have you been present for? None. How many freak wild animal attacks have you been around for? None. I mean, I could go through my life carrying a gun. The 49 years of my life, the 30 years of my adult life has been as if I were carrying a concealed weapon. I might as well have been carrying one because I have never had the opportunity to use one. I've gotten into some fights, but they have never risen to the level where I would feel justified in pulling out a gun. And this is the basic problem between the emotion and the reality of life, which is you can be prepared for all sorts of things, but in practice you want to be prepared for the things that are likely to happen. And the less likely something is to happen, the less prepared, the less money and effort and psychological time you want to put into getting ready to handle it. And you can be irrational. I really ought to do something about these bookcases because I was sitting in this room in the early morning in 1994 when the last big earthquake hit LA and those bookcases crashed down. And now I'm actually sleeping on the couch, which is another, see, I'm beginning to digress. And I would be badly hurt if there were another earthquake. I'm probably not going to end up with brain damage because of books and stuff falling on my head, even though I'm not doing anything about it. On the other hand, I always leave the house wearing clothes because there's an almost, for many reasons, but I probably couldn't get away without being arrested. That was a really stupid analogy. I need a better one, but you know what I mean. That basically, if I leave the house knowing that I'm probably going to, buy food out there, I always go with something to pay for it because that's a real chance. But if you personally had a gun on you at all times, there is almost no chance that you would get to kill a crazed shooter. It just wouldn't come up in your life. And not only that, but if as I said, I vaguely favor, in the abstract sense, the idea that universal concealed weapon policies would perhaps bring down the violence, and for that very same reason that people who know that a lot of people probably or might have guns would have a dissuading effect. So there would be even less chance for you personally with your concealed weapon to kill someone justifiably. And looking at it from the other side, in the case of a crazed person like Cho, the only way for a citizen to be there to shoot him dead would be if 80%, some insanely large percentage of the American population were carrying weapons at all time. Are you actually suggesting some kind of social change that would make this happen? Number one, it ain't going to happen. But what would you even be suggesting? And I don't actually, like I said, I don't really want to talk about these policies because they're fantasies. You, it's true that a majority of the population, the male population of the United States, probably feels like, damn, if I'd been there, I would have killed the motherfucker if I could have. It is also true that some large percentage of those people probably said, I would have done it with a gun. I wish I could carry a gun everywhere so that I'd be ready if that happened. In the abstract, if everyone actually had the right to do that, forgetting for a moment the impossibility of actually creating that sort of a situation, the vast majority of people would not carry guns all the time for the simple reason they wouldn't need them. It would be too much work, which is why we're sort of in the situation we're in now. They stopped carrying guns on their hips in the Wild West long before political correctness, long before liberal lefty Marxist bastards, long before the giant national security state. They stopped carrying the guns on their hips because they didn't want to, and there came a point when it was good enough to have a guy or a few guys in town who carried the guns for everybody. That's how these things evolve. Now we're in a situation where you see this kind of thing on the media because, it stirs up these primal emotions, and you go, oh, why didn't someone have a gun and kill them? Because that would be the way to respond. Yes, if it happened all the time. If it happened all the time, that would be the way to respond. And if people responded that way, it wouldn't happen all the time, and we'd be evolving back to the situation we're in right now. The bottom line is, when you're talking about a crazy person who starts killing people, you're talking and doesn't care and expects to die. You're talking about something that is like an animal, a wild animal in the modern age. In the Old West, you had to have a gun not only for the bad man, but for the wild animal that could kill you wherever you went. Nowadays, every now and then somebody gets, mauled to death by a cougar. They didn't have a gun on their hip. That's the way we live. There are crazed alcoholic motorists on the road all over the country, but statistically speaking, they're so rare that it's horrible when someone gets killed by them, and the rate is too high, and there's a whole other industry in and of itself. But fighting against that. But in practical terms, if you went everywhere with a bazooka and trained yourself to instantly recognize the alcoholic driver, if we had a law that said you can blow up a drunk driver, because he's about to hit a van full of kids, and you've got the skills and you got the bazooka, you'd walk through your life carrying a fucking bazooka. And after a while, you get sick of it. So can't we have, can't we do something else? Isn't there some other way to deal with this? And this is the water, the human nature, social interaction, water finding its own level. This is why we live in the kind of world that we live in, where the specialization of killing people who deserve it has been reduced down to a particular group of people, and it hurts. It hurts the people who don't have the guns, the men anyway, on an emotional level. Whenever they see some situation where they can put themselves in the situation and say, but I would have wanted to fight back and I wouldn't have had the gun, that's when you feel sorry about it. It's sort of like, I don't have to die at 25 slaving in the fields like some, peon 5,000 years ago, because civilization has made my life incredibly simple, which is why I'm way the fuck overweight and need to deal with that. And I feel bad about that, but not so much that I want to go back and become a dirt farmer in the Stone Age. There's this myth I heard, I believe it's Indian, about the invention of shoes. And I forget what the ancient Indian rulers were called, but the emperor of India got sick of hurting his bare feet on rocks. So he decreed that his entire kingdom was to be carpeted in soft animal skin, so that he would never again hurt his bare feet. And then the genius of his kingdom arrived and said, "Hey, dude, instead of carpeting the whole country, maybe we could just stick pieces of carpet on the bottoms of your feet." You know, civilization, advancement. I mean, I hope there have been the closest I ever came to that scenario. It would hurt my pride to run like a little girl, as the saying goes, you know, from some guy firing wildly. It would just embarrass me. I would probably be one of the first people killed because I would be slow to flee. So I completely understand. There was the closest I ever came to an incident like that was some guy who'd gotten into some kind of road rage accident, was stopped in the middle of the street, and the guy in the pickup truck suddenly started yelling to his girlfriend, "Get my gun! Get my gun!" I don't think he had a gun. It was, you know, but it was like that moment you sort of say, am I going to have to run like a little girl? Because I don't have a gun, you know, and anyway, I have digressed. I'm going to end this as quick as I can, but I can't be me if I don't have a seeming digression that boomerangs back to the subject. My mom is shall we say, a collector. Some might call her a pack rat. She grew up during the Depression, and now in her old age, she has become just wild about keeping stuff. Keeping. And as you can see from my room, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Although my problem is more just an unwillingness to clean up. Anyway, last weekend, I went over to help her do what she refers to as getting control of her room. Her bedroom is full of stuff. She actually moved out into the living room. I'm digressing all over the place. While she tries to get control of all her stuff. So there were all these boxes that I was supposed to carry out. Of course, I wasn't supposed to get rid of the stuff that was in them. They were books within boxes, within boxes, within boxes, none of which will ever be read, some of which might have something interesting, but most of them not. They should just go away, but instead they go into the garage. So I'm carrying out boxes, and my mom, suddenly, as I get in there, she suddenly pulls this out. She says, what should I do with this? And I don't know what it is. And I say, get rid of it, throw it out. And she goes, no, I paid good money for it. No, maybe you could use them as props. So I got them. What are they, you ask? Souvenir of 9/11. Gas masks for the entire family. My brother, his kids. So we were ready. We were ready if the next attack was a gas attack. We had a huge bag full of gas masks. In the end, those gas masks saved our lives as reliably as if I or you had carried a concealed weapon all our lives.